My name is Charles Kwekweskin, and I founded a charity called bookstrong.org based on my life experiences. And I'm gonna try to kind of recap all of my life experiences within a very short time. I grew up in a West African country called Ghana. I was born premature, like I was 7 months or something like that, according to my parents. After I was born, I was sent to my maternal grandparent to raise me in an African village called Jomo. To say the least, I grew up in a very poor neighborhood. It was very hard, financially to get by. I didn't have no baby food. There was no breast milk for me. I was eating what everybody was eating. I was malnourished. I got sick a lot. I remember in 4th grade, both of my paternal grandparents were retired, and because the money coming in from their retirement was so little to take care of me, my brother, my aunts, and themselves, my grandmother was selling bread at the local hospital. She would wake me up 3 a.m. just so I can help her go sell the bread that early in the morning. That was the first thing I do when I wake up. Follow my grandmother to the hospital, which is about a quarter mile from where we live. We had to walk though. We'll get back home around 6 a.m., put on my uniform and go to school. I was trying to figure out why I had to do that. At that time, the public schools, we had to pay for it. We paid for our own books, we paid for school fees basically, and we paid for whatever fees that is associated with going to class. If I wanted to go to school, I have to sell the bread basically, so I can't rebel if I want to go to school. No matter what, I wake up at 3 a.m. every morning, as far as I can remember, to follow my grandma to go sell bread. And I did this from 4th grade through 6th grade. No matter what I went through, no matter what difficulties I had, I always had a thing for, reading books, reading different books and stuff like that. And one time I remember in junior high, my grandfather brought in this magazine and it talked about Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. And that fascinated me. During this junior high period, I was, more into reading, and I decided to go do research at the local library, and the closest one was about 30 miles from me. Most of the times I had to walk like 30 miles to the library and 30 miles back. Now looking back, it's kind of crazy because right now I will not walk 30 miles just to access the library, but at that time it was like something that I had to do. I didn't think about walking 30 miles. I thought about, man, I'm gonna get this book. Like as soon as I get to the library, like I'm gonna take an hour and read like whatever that I have. It brings back memories right now. I'll get out of school, walk to the library, read a little bit, borrow the book, walk back 30 miles, get something to eat, and study before I go to sleep. Wake up again at 3 a.m. So I was getting little sleep just so I'll be able to make it through school. That wasn't even a problem. Now the real problem comes when you want to sit down and study. During the day, it's chaotic. You're being disturbed by everybody. My style was to wait till dawn, from 11 p.m. into midnight to the early mornings to study. The only problem I had was mosquitoes. I don't know how to even begin. It was very bad. Sometimes I had to dress like I'm going into a lab. I put on like 3 clothes, wear a glove, and wear shoes and stuff like that, just so I can study, because mosquitoes will bother you. And if I decide to study indoors, where my grandparents lived, it was just a 2-room, a bedroom and a living room, and there was a light that divided the living room and the bedroom. If I wanted to study, I had to make sure that I don't disturb my grandparents with the light. It was very tedious just trying to study. With all these conditions, I was still studying. Sometimes I don't want to bother my grandparents, I don't want to bother my brother, and I don't want to bother my auntie when she's sleeping. So what I do is sit outside anyway, sit through the mosquitoes to study. I used to get sick a lot, malaria. I used to get malaria a lot. Now that I reflect back on it, no matter what I went through, no matter what the hardship was, being it mosquitoes, being it a place that I will have to study, being it a sickness that I have to go through, being it the distance that I have to walk to the library, I was worried about, getting the information, being educated. I graduated from junior high to high school in Ghana. I wrote the exam, the high school entrance exam, and I was the whole district. I was the second person or something like that, as far as I can remember, the second to get the highest grade. And I got into high school. Now, you know, we pay for high school in Ghana too. It doesn't matter whether it's a public school or it's a private school. You have to pay it. That is when I decided to go and sell newspapers, because I had to pay for it. Basically, I had to find a way to pay for it. I was not selling bread with my grandma again, so I decided to sell newspapers on the street. I had to buy books, I had to buy uniforms. High school was about 15 miles from my home. Sometimes I walked, sometimes I had to take the train. You know, this time around I had friends who were going to the same high school, so the walk wasn't that much of a big deal, because you know, when you're walking with friends, you're talking and stuff. Then again, I had the same conditions. I had to study outside in mosquitoes. I had to go to the library to get books and stuff like that. Despite all this, I was doing well in classes. And you know, during my one of my newspaper errands, I ran into this lady. I used to sell newspapers to her, and she got to talking to me because, you know, she thought maybe I wasn't going to school because I was always selling newspapers to her. So yeah, I told her I was going to school. You know, my major is science, and I hope I become a doctor someday. And she became interested. One day I came in, instead of giving me my newspapers, the amount of money for the newspapers I gave her, she made a mistake and gave me the money for her sales that day for the supermarket she owns. So, you know, I took the money without knowing. I went to my vendor and I saw that the money was more than what she was supposed to give me. So I was like, oh man. I took the money and gave it to her, and I was like, you made a mistake, you gave me the wrong money. And she thanked me, and she was like, you know, not a lot of people will do this. So now she really trusted me. So now whenever I come in, she would give me the money for the newspaper she bought from me, and sometimes give me a tip. We became friends. And one day she asked me, like, what are my plans? What do I want to do after high school? And I said, you know, I want to go to university and try to become a doctor. So she told me about how her son took the SAT, and like, I didn't know about the SAT at all before this lady mentioned it to me. It was a new thing to me. I was a little intimidated, but when I went in, I was like, this is my life. And you know, I've never backed down from a situation, from a hustle. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So I went and took the SAT, and as far as I remember, I got about 1650, and Arkansas Tech admitted me, and I got admission to Arkansas Tech for electrical engineering. Went to school a little bit over there and transferred to Texas A&M. I have a GPA of 3.78 right now, chemical engineering. If I say that the United States of America is the greatest country on earth, I'm alluding to what I'm trying to say is, you know, the opportunities are here. I was able to create a charity, this Book Strong, by going online and putting my ideas. I've gathered educational books. You know, people are willing to help. They've brought in books and stuff like that. Some have invited me to their churches to tell my story. It's not all about money. It takes a drive. It takes motivation to make it work. You know, I grew up from, you know, from nothing to get to this point, and I've been able to help somebody get through high school. That's big for me. I never dreamt that I'll be able to do this. You know, if you have educational books you want to donate, go to bookstrong.org and help us educate children. Thank you for listening to my story. God bless you.
Don't go. putting in time, out trying to get mine. And for the most part, things been going pretty good, but something deep down ain't right, so I try to maintain and just do my thing.